वे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Thank you all very much for joining today's session. So we have been discussing from the sixth verse of Manasiksha. So before we start today's session, I would request Radha Pramod Prabhu to do a recap of what we have seen last week, and then we will continue further. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prabhu.
ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. So we are discussing from the commentary of Srila Bhaktivigyan Goswami Maharaj. So I will not take the verse, Prabhuji will discuss on that again. So I will just tell what Maharaj is trying to explain the words. I'll just summarize last week also, because it's all Maharaj in a flow. So I'll just take 2 minutes. We'll see what is in 62nd week and then we'll go further. He says, "Arey, you fool," in a very crude way, because he has come to the height of addressing the mind. And in a grat, as you are bathing, urine of a great, yes. So here he describes about Kapata and Kutinati. Now, what he is telling to the mind is that whom are you cheating? You yourself feel the fire of remorse for having bathed in that filth, and the soul is actually addressing the mind here. He's telling, I am also burning, you are also burning, we both are burning. Why are you doing this? So instead of bathing in the urine of a big ass, better we bathe in the ocean of nectar, the shining nectar of prema from the lotus feet of divine couple. So if you always bathe in that nectar, then both you and I will be happy. So here our soul is addressing mind. Now, what is this deception, cheating? Maharaj explains that Ajnana Tamira Nama Kahe Kaitava. So he says ignorance in our heart takes in the form of deception. Kaitava. Ignorance is here defined as vancha, desire for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Now, why this is called deception? Any of this desire, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, everything is deception. Why? Because all these life goals, in one way or another, they are putting us in the center. This is very important. Srila Vishwanath Chakrara explained that the living being are eternal servants of God, so their main duty is to serve. But when we forget this and focusing on ourselves, like if you are interested in any of these things, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, then we become the focus, and this focus is called cheating. Now the cheating, the desire for dharma is cheating, pious activities is also cheating, moksha is cheating, and wealth and even lust, everything is a cheating. And of all these things, worst desire is moksha, because the focus of our life should be to please Krishna, and trying to please Krishna, one will automatically become dharmic or pious, but that should not be our focus. So here, those who say I want to serve Krishna but instead keep on serving themselves are cheating. So now we also have this cheating propensity, so we have to identify that. So now this verse Maharaj is telling how it is helping us to identify. So under the cover of serving Krishna, we serve ourselves, our own interest, our own petty desires, our ambitions. And since Krishna conscious pure devotional service is greatest path, the definition of cheating is also very strict. So any small thing here and there, it is considered cheating. So now in this today next section, Maharaj it gives that examples. So dharmic enjoyment is sakam karmaya. It is also cheating, yes, in the point of nishkam karma yoga. So there are so many goals like that. So now Balimara is telling Mother Earth, I cannot bear all kinds of Mother Earth is I can bear all kind of sinners, but not a cheater. Cheater means this is so anything that distracts us from the mode of being servant of Krishna. So now further Mahara explains that what is the role of mind in cheating. So because it's very fine things, we really need to put our intelligence to understand where I am going wrong in our spiritual life. And we see this is very helpful in that way. So there are two things: internal cause and external cause. Internal, there are causes of hypocrisy where our mind is cheating. Internal cause is because of false ego, and internal cause also has mind filled with unholy desires. And external cause is ethos, which is severely judgmental. Now, internal cause, because of false ego, we want to show ourselves greater than who we are. And also, when mind is filled with unholy desires, our struggles and inabilities to share with others because of fear of being judgmental. So, the solution for internal we'll discuss further down. But when it comes to external, the solutions are we have to be careful and sensitive in our dealings, and we have to deal with other people's conditions in a very soft, sensitive, and understanding and hope giving way. And we should not judge, we should not be critical, and understand they will get purified soon by the power of devotional service. So this is when it comes, when a person has very severe judgmental ethos, for him this is a solution. This is what how our mind is cheating. Now, what is the root cause of this hypocrisy? Now we have this within the mind. If we want to know whether I have or not, it is very simple. If our mind is filled with unholy desires, then definitely it will do. Definitely there will be hypocrisy. And it is two ways to deal with such a mind. So either we hide it, we say, "Oh, I don't have any unholy desires," and then we try to cheat people and secretly fulfill these desires, and then we become hypocrite, and that is like bathing in the unholy urine of the ass, and it cannot make us happy, and we will never be satisfied in such situation. And how to deal with it? We have to saturate ourselves with Krishna conscious vibrations, have happy Krishna conscious engagement, and remain in a prayerful mood, appreciating the glories of Radha Krishna and humility, the prayers which are sung by Rupa Goswami. And the set the need to be seen as an advanced devotee. So sorry, we have to subdue the need to be seen as an advanced devotee. So this is also the tendency we have, and because of this, what happens if we wish to be seen as advanced devotee, then naturally hypocrisy will come. So this is like bathing under the ocean of now the come out of it, we have to bathe in the ocean of love of Radha Krishna, which will purify us and make us happy. Now, while is explaining what is present pretense, so he previously explained what is hypocrisy. Now he is explaining what is pretense. Pretending to be something that we are not. So, and this also happens because pride. If we have pride, then we try to pretend. Pride manifests as lack of humility and lack of tolerance and inability to offer respect to others. So all these things make us we lose humility, and then we become proud, and because of pride we try to show what we are not. Okay, I am something great, and I because I see some everybody is less than me, I want to be better than him, so I always feel proud. See, I am better. We try always to impress others and get appreciation from them. In doing so, we are constantly thinking about ourselves and becoming so self-absorbed that we are unable to think of Krishna. So previously we discussed like the main reason why this is cheating, because instead of thinking of Krishna, we are thinking of ourselves. Dharma, artha, kam, moksha. This is all self-centered. So even when we are proud, then we are also self-centered. So in the when we are in the association of devotees, also if we are thinking of ourselves, that is also a pretense. That's why we are unable to recognize Krishna, who comes to us in many ways. Because Krishna is there everywhere, but we are not able to see. And Krishna is coming in the words of spiritual master. That also we cannot see, because we are not able to recognize, because we are self-absorbed, and this is because of pride. Now, how to give it up? So the nice example Maharaj gives for this pretense is like Hanuman tried to pretend what he is not, and when he came in front of Lord Ram, he could not recognize, even though he was chanting the name of Lord Ram whole life. When he was in front of Lord Ram, he could not recognize. Lord said, because You pretended to be something what you are not. So I came, you could not see. Ayataman prapadyante. So as long as we pretend to be something else, we won't be able to recognize Krishna even if he's standing right in front of us. Therefore, Raghunathas Goswami urges we have to give up that cheating. So I am something, I'm acting. So we are trying to pretend in front of so many people. So we have to give up this vital aspect. So when we give up this cheating, this is actually a very important aspect then of anartha nivritti. So we are trying to give up our pretense. And how to do it? So this is very important. We have to keep watching our motives in order to eliminate this anartha. Especially whenever we are doing even a small thing also, we should see what is motivating me in doing this activity. So then only we'll be able to recognize and then get rid of it. And then there is a desire for recognition. The desire for recognition and honor is the most dangerous anartha, because we began seeking satisfaction of this anartha in the society of devotees. So we will be in the devotees, we are devotees, but we are doing something which is contrary to our position. So desire for recognition, most subtle desire for sex, and we want to be recognized, we want to be respected, we want to be glorified, we want to be center of everyone's discussion, and we may not know it. We say no, I am not doing. But suddenly if somebody does not say Hare Krishna Prabhu, immediately we, it so much hurts us. How this person don't say Hare Krishna, what he thinks of himself, he's not even saying Hare Krishna to me. So we immediately get hurt if somebody is not respect, then we can recognize that I have this problem. Like, and then also this anartha is coming in a very subtle way. Like sometimes our material attachments come in a very noble ideas. So then Maharaj gives example. So these some things they are very gross, but sometimes when it comes in a noble idea, it is more difficult to recognize them. So he gives example of Arjuna. Arjuna is telling, I don't want to kill my uncle, my grandfather, my teacher. So he is giving very noble reasons of not fighting. Even Yudhishthir, he is telling, I never lied in my life. So he's attached to that idea of not lying. Arjuna is attached to something. So even though this is very noble, but it is also in way it's an anartha. It is also coming under uh, a cheating propensity, because it is self-centered. It is not about pleasing Krishna. So for us, they come in the form of some great revelations while chanting. Okay, it may not be so noble ideas, but our noble ideas come when we start sitting for chanting, and as soon as we start chanting, we get the idea, and that so wonderful idea will take us away from Krishna for whole chanting. We'll not able to think of Krishna whole chanting. So obstacle takes place in a beautiful shape like Apsaras. Whereas Apsaras may not come directly, but they come in this form. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundari. I do not want sundarim, but kavitam. I do not want lovely words, lovely ideas and thoughts. So lovely words, lovely ideas, thoughts, they are actually Apsaras for in our position, in our case. At first, deception comes in a harmless ways. So person get extra change. He thinks, oh, nice way to earn money. Sometimes a person jokes, and for being witty, he slightly exaggerate. Okay, he tells something more so that he wanted to show off. And sometimes a person argues in the heat of the debate, he resorts to lies. So it is very small way, but the result of deception is people lose the ability to introspect. So this is actually what happens if we are going on cheating. That's why we see, array, it is so obvious this person is going in wrong direction. We everybody is able to see, but he cannot see, because he loses the ability to introspect and self analyze. Why has my spiritual life became stagnant? So he don't understand that. And people lie to themselves. They are unable to look at themselves from different angle, and deception is something so deep that the person lose the ability to for to see their self deception. And then it is a duty of a devotee to be constantly introspective and ask, how sincere am I? So after this class, if we can ask this question to ourselves, then we are able to introspect. What are my motives, what drives me? So become so then it becomes easier when we have the association. It becomes like-minded, affectionate and advanced devotees. So after the session, if you can just have this question, how sincere I am. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you very much. You practically summarized the whole thing. I don't think I need to summarize at all. It was very nice summary. So what I'll do is, instead of summarizing it, because practically every single point you have touched upon what we discussed, and I'll most likely be repeating the whole thing. So I would rather mm, directly, see if there are any quick comments, discussion points, questions. Um, we will take it now, and then we will start with where we left off last time. If anyone would like to share some thoughts, questions, discussion points, is Madhavi Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavad.
Dandavad.
Prabhuji, last time we had one discussion. I had confusion regarding that thinking about the pastimes of Krishna is like we were discussing sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, something. I don't exactly recollect, but in that context, we were discussing that thinking while chanting, if we are thinking about the pastimes or something like that, then this is a sattvic kind of a distraction, or apsaras we were talking about. So this is kind of a sattvic thing. So I just wanted to, because many times many acharyas, like current acharyas, what in ISKCON has seen that they promote, or they consider this, even if not promote, those if the pastimes come to the mind of a devotee, or they are contemplating on particular pastime of their Lord, then it is considered as a good thing. But here it didn't come in that very positive note. So I just wanted to know that how it should be taken.
Well, actually, it is described that the holy name reveals the, as we Nama Rupa Guna Leela. It is mentioned that the holy name reveals the form naturally at the stage of Nishta, and the holy name reveals guna or qualities naturally at the stage of Ruchi, and the holy name reveals naturally the pastimes at the stage of Asakti. So it is not that no one can meditate on Leela. Those who are qualified for it, those who have reached the stage of Asakti, for them, naturally, when they chant the holy name, it will reveal the pastimes for them. And it's a natural process, it is not artificially imposed. And similarly, for those who are uh, 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 at the stage of Nishta, when they chant the holy name, naturally the form of their worshipable deity is revealed by the holy name. It is natural, but it's not artificially imposed. So it's not that no one can meditate, um, and it's not that one should not meditate on the form of the Lord at all. It's just that at the time of chanting, if one has not yet reached the stage of Nishtha, then one should try one's best to hear what one is chanting. But when in doing that, when one becomes qualified and reaches the stage of steady devotional service, then it is very favorable. It's not favorable. Actually, naturally, when they chant, the holy name reveals the form. So when Prabhupada said it, he did not mean that no one should meditate on the form. It's our qualities, our pastimes, but just that one should not artificially try to do it at the time of chanting. When one is not chanting, one can certainly meditate on the form, one can certainly meditate on the Leela, one can certainly meditate on the qualities of Krishna. That is not at all wrong. It's just that at the time of chanting, a person who is still at the stage of Anarthana Vritti, or for one for whom Anartha Nivritti has not been accomplished, that meditation on the other aspects of the Lord can be a distraction. Or many times we may do it because we find hearing the holy name too boring, and it's more interesting to meditate on the Leela or something like that. But that kind of an attitude towards the holy name, if we actually perpetuate, then that's very unhealthy, because abhinnatva manamino, the holy name is not different from Krishna. So so that attitude towards the holy name can become offensive, that, oh, holy name is boring, let me think about some Leela. At least I'm not thinking about some material things. So that attitude is towards the holy name is not very favorable. That's why Prabhupada said, hear the holy name, like that. That's my understanding.
Okay, that's what means I understood very nicely regarding this Apsara kind of a thing now. And one more point in that, like Prabhuji, many times suppose we have studied a Bhagavatam, a particular chapter. Okay, so maybe for the exam or whatever, so you are constantly engaged with that chapter. So it becomes very natural that when we sit for chanting, the thoughts or that pastimes come to the mind. Now I know that that does not mean that the person is at the level of asakti.
Correct.
So how we differentiate between that, because there also it comes naturally, because the mind has been engaged in that particular thing for a while, and it's a recent past. And then that also comes naturally because of that, because of the recent engagement. But at the same time, it is not asakti. So what it is then?
It is just, it is natural, Namataji. Whatever we have, our very recent experiences are very fresh in our memory. So whether we sit for chanting or anything, it is but natural that they will come in our remembrance.
That also we will consider as Apsara only, or
well, it's a very you can say very pious Apsara, you can say, or very
okay,
nice Apsara, but you cannot, because it's taking our attention away from Krishna, away from the holy name. But
so
it's,
whatever will take our attention away from hearing the holy name to engaging with that sound, that is Apsara. That's what I understood. Like,
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bhavani. Yeah.
Anything else anyone would like to share, add, ask before we move on to today's discussion? Okay, so if there is nothing, then I think we will continue with our discussion. So okay, there is one hand up. Padma Sakhi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhuji.
Dandavat.
Prabhuji, regarding the noble ideas, it is a little confusing. First of all, we are saying that it's a noble idea, and then we bring it also under a cheating propensity.
No, it is what he says is under the pretext of being a noble idea. Many times you think, oh, I'm just trying to help this person, but actually it may be our own attachment. It may not be that I may think that it's a noble idea, but if the noble idea is not exactly pure devotional. For example, saw the example of Arjuna. So Arjuna said, oh, how can I kill my own grandfather and guru? So that consideration was there. It was a noble idea, but then on the other side there is Krishna's desire. So if that noble idea is taking one away from executing Krishna's desire, then that's a problem. Similarly with Yudhishthir Maharaj, not lie is very noble, But if that attachment to not lying is taking that person away from executing Krishna's desire, then that noble idea becomes an obstacle to Krishna consciousness in that sense.
Yeah, so but there can be so many devotional services or activities which we feel are very noble, you know,
Mhm.
like you have even like book distribution, then
Mhm.
you have so many such drives that each temple takes on, you
Mhm.
know. So
Mhm.
they all come under devotional activities, and they are all noble ideas to kind of get people more attracted to Krishna.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
then, huh,
So they are perfect. So that's as long as during japa time you don't do it, it is all perfect. But if you, the only thing is while doing japa, if we are thinking about that, that's where the problem is. But otherwise, it's perfectly fine.
no, but sometimes while executing these noble ideas also, like over a
Mhm.
period of time, do we not get attached to these noble ideas? Then is it still a noble idea?
Well, if we get attached to the right thing, actually we are supposed to get attached to the right thing. But the only problem is when that attachment is to that thing which may take us away from Krishna, or away from, or sometimes even within devotional we may get attached to the secondary thing and not the primary thing. Then that attachment to that secondary devotional principle becomes an obstacle. Some
So, but is it
so.
so? If that attachment is like, if we can take an example of book distribution or anything
Mhm.
else, started with a noble cause, started
Mm.
to kind of give Krishna consciousness to everyone, but over a period of years, if it becomes target oriented,
Then that's an obstacle, right? Now,
yeah, that's
target
what. So
oriented is still okay, but if the target orientedness is for personal fame or personal glory, then it becomes second.
okay,
If
so then the second when the secondary starts taking prominence.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bhuje.
Right. Anything else before we move ahead? Yes, Srinivas Prasad Pro.
Hare Krishna, Dandatanam Prabhuji.
Another Pro.
Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yes, Pro.
Prabhuji, my question is like when we do services, various services in Krishna consciousness, like preaching also, and then gradually people start getting attracted to the this moment. And when while you are preaching, so you are offering whatever the results are coming, and when the people are praising a lot, and you offer those everything at the lotus feet of the Guru and Krishna. But still, in some subtle way, in the back of the mind, there is some kind of like thing which is going on in the mind that now so many devotees are coming and they're appreciating. So how to deal with that subtle praise which is coming, even if we are every time, every moment we are offering the everything at the lotus feet of the Guru and Gauranga, but still there is something which is going in the back of the mind. So how to overcome that?
Well, that's what we are discussing in this whole verse. Sadatvam, what is it? Gandharva Giridhara Prema Vilasat Sudambodau Snatva. So by taking bath in the nectar that is flowing from the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, which is actually absorbing ourselves in glorifying their lordships, offering prayers to them, and presenting our fallen state to them and begging for mercy. So when we do it consciously and on a regular basis, then naturally we will start getting an alternative nourishment. So a more positive Krishna conscious nourishment which is different from the kind of, you can't even call it exactly nourishment, a kind of intoxication that we may get from this name, fame, glorification. Mm. So when we get proper nourishment, then the intoxication will not affect us so much. We'll be ready to pass on the glorification properly to where it really belongs, to the acharyas and our Guru Maharaj, like that. So that's what this verse is talking about. That when we and also if we have a good habit of because many times when people become dependent on us, they take guidance from us, then slowly we end up spending more time there, and we may not necessarily spend sufficient time taking guidance from our superiors. So then when it is always balanced, where we guide our subordinates, but at the same time when we sit at the lotus feet and hear from our superiors, then it will always keep us grounded.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can I have another question? A small
Prabhu.
one which Mataji was discussing.
Yeah.
So, like when we chant the holy name, so we don't artificially do it, but like Mataji was saying that, it reminds us, because we have seen the darshans of the Lordship, like we have the deities at our home. So when you are chanting, so you are remembering the lotus feet of Gaur Nitai. So
Mhm.
they automatically, while you're chanting, so that the lotus feet of the Gaur Nitai are coming in your thoughts. So how do we understand that we chant just as if we are one by one, we are doing the rounds, and we think that we are just trying to press the lotus feet of Nitai Gaur Hari. And so is that nice, or we should not do that? So can you guide on that?
Well, I mean, you don't know. I don't think anyone needs to feel embarrassed when getting when getting such thoughts. The only thing is, I mean, it is definitely better than our mind hovering over material thoughts. But still, when Krishna is presenting himself in the form of holy name, who is non-different from Krishna, then there is a way of honoring him. So uh, so so while we are at the stage of anarthana vritti, we are certainly not probably advanced enough to uh, to honor the holy name perfectly, at the same time the holy form of the Lord also perfectly. So so one can probably, I mean, this is the best thing. It's not that I follow all these things. I also catch myself not uh, not up to the standard practically every round. But at least this is what the acharyas present. That you can probably complete that round and sit and meditate for a while,
The lotus feet, then start the round.
and then start the round. Prabhupada said, hear the mantra. So but whenever the mind goes, you pull it back and hear the mantra. That's what Prabhupada says.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It makes a lot of sense, and I'm so grateful to you for this answer. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Thank you. Anything else before we move ahead? Okay, so we will start today's discussion. Dada Pramod Prabhu has done a very nice summary. So we discussed last time the role of mind in cheating, and we discussed that how it is pride which makes us pretend. So pretend means to present ourselves as something that we are not really. And when we pretend, it's very difficult to see Krishna, recognize Krishna. And we saw the example of Hanumanji approaching Lord Ram and Lakshman on the behalf of Sugriva. He approached them in disguise, and he could not. He had to ask them, "Who are you?" And when they revealed that they are Lord Ram and Lakshmana, he was really surprised that, I have been worshipping you since I was a child, and I've been chanting your name. How is it that I could not recognize you? And Lord Ram very clearly says, look, uh, you, uh, you know, you appeared, uh, uh, you know, you appeared in a disguise. So when someone is in a disguise, we were discussing this theme last time. When someone has disguised himself and very clearly does not want to show himself, show his real form, then one becomes very much self-absorbed. That is anyone recognizing me? And in that self-absorption, it is very difficult for us to identify or relate with the other person's intentions or mood or some signal that he is giving. It's very difficult to recognize, because we feel very much self-absorbed. So therefore, Maharaj says here that as long as we pretend to be someone else, we won't be able to recognize Krishna, even if he is standing right in front of us, because we always will be absorbed in trying to not be recognized of who we really are. So we want to do a very perfect act of pretending, that it keeps our mind so absorbed that that even when Krishna is there, we are so absorbed in pretending and protecting our false identity, so that people don't recognize who I really am. So that's what here Raghunath Das Goswami is mentioning. So if we try to cheat Krishna, then we will end up cheating ourselves. He will cheat us. So therefore, giving up this cheating propensity is very vital in our spiritual life. So that's what he says. So then Maharaj talks about this Utsahamai stage. Even though in the beginning we feel very, very enthusiastic, and we feel like this attraction and ecstasy will last forever, but at some point we lose it. The subtle anarthas, they prevent us from truly seeing or feeling God. So Raghunath Das Goswami says, watch your motives in order to eliminate the anarthas. And Maharaj says that Srila Prabhupada gives very easy definition of anartha nivritti. He says, oh, you have stopped smoking, that is one anartha less, right? And you have given up meat eating, that is another anartha less. You have removed the desire for gross sex or gambling, you have two more anarthas gone, like that. So in this way, slowly we should work on anarthas. I was discussing with one of the devotees, and he was sharing his discussion with another devotee who was sharing his discussion with his spiritual mentor. Okay, this is parampara nonsense. So with actually not his spiritual mentor, with his guru. And this conversation which happened between the guru and the disciple is from a different bona fide sampradaya. So in that, he was sharing that the guru asked the disciple, how are you doing? And and the disciples said, I'm struggling with my own. I'm struggling, he said. Then the Guru asked, what are you struggling with? And because the disciple was a very introspective disciple, he had already introspected sufficiently, and uh, rather than beating around the bush, he said, uh, number one, number two. These are my two main anarthas which I am really struggling. Then the Guru said, okay, so what are you doing to overcome these two obstacles? So, and then he shared certain things, and the Guru shared certain other things that which the disciple could do to overcome. So the point is, the point the devotee was sharing that, wow, many times we know we are struggling, but we are not very uh, actually courageous enough to pinpoint what we are struggling with and actually address it. Many times we sort of very vaguely say that, Prabhu, there are a lot of anarthas. I have not, I am still struggling devotee only. But many times we don't want to identify what we are struggling with and actually address exactly what we are struggling with. So, so that's what. But but this duo sharing that it's very important that we actually identify what we are struggling with and actually address that problem, because that's what here Raghunath Das Goswami is indicating, that for each anartha there is a solution that is given for like that. So therefore here it is mentioned that we need to, each one is one anartha, and then we have to address each anartha individually, like that. So in the beginning, he says that the gross anarthas get purified, but then as the gross anarthas get purified, the subtler anarthas become very clear and visible. And the desire for recognition and honor, this is one of the most dangerous anarthas in the society of devotees. So, and as soon as someone does not respect us, then it really rubs our false ego in the wrong way. So he says this is like subtle sex. The need to be recognized and respected, and so that people always see us. We want to be seen at the center of everything, like that. So this is a very subtler anartha. And sometimes Maharaj says that our material attachments disguise themselves so well, it's impossible to recognize them. It is our material attachments, but it comes in the form of some noble ideas, right? We saw the examples. Like this is where he talks about Arjuna and Yudhishthir Maharaj. We saw this, right? So these anarthas are compared to these noble ideas are compared to apsaras, because not every noble thought is necessarily favorable for Krishna consciousness, right? So sometimes they may be unfavorable for one's Krishna consciousness. So these are compared to apsaras by Maharaj, and the apsaras are noble thoughts. And he talks about while chanting we may get many wonderful ideas. That's compared to an apsara here which can cheat one, right? And then another wonderful point that Maharaj says here is that it is when one does not give up this cheating or deception, then one loses the ability to introspect and self-analyze. So, because many times in trying to deceive others, I mean, I have, I don't know if you have had this experience. Sometimes you start telling a lie and you have told it so many times that actually you forget that it is a lie and you start thinking that it's actually truth. I don't know if you have ever had this experience. Sometimes in a very harmless way, it could not be even an outright lie. It may be just an exaggeration. You exaggerate and tell something, but when you have spoken this exaggerated truth to sufficient number of people, after some time, you forget that it's an exaggeration and you start believing that it's reality. So here he says that when we start deceiving people, then the person loses his ability to introspect and self-analyze, because we become so busy in deceiving people, and because we have deceived people, we will have to people may come to know that we are deceiving them, so we will have to protect it. And our mind becomes so absorbed in protecting the deception that we have portrayed to people. So then our mind becomes so absorbed in that for a period of time, uh, you know, we forget to stop, um, introspect, and self-analyze our problems. So then it becomes very difficult. So when we lose the ability and the habit of self-analysis and introspection, then it becomes very, very difficult. Then this whole vicious cycle of deceiving people and deceiving ourselves, it keeps continuing. So and at some point, as Maharaj writes, it is sometimes so deep a person loses the ability to see the self-deception. It becomes very difficult. So yeah, I think this is where we ended our discussion last time. So we'll start today's discussion, which is the path of deceit. This is what Maharaj is going to discuss about this theme, the path of deceit. So let's start discussing. Maharaj says, Narottam Das Thakur calls such actions asat kriya, or actions based on false concept of life. A person does such trifles and becomes accustomed to behaving in this way. So how does this path of deceit, how it manifests and where it takes us? That's what Maharaj discusses in this theme. When we begin rendering devotional service and we start behaving in the above ways out of habit, then small sins or innocent trifles turn into offenses. So this is a very important aspect that he's talking about, that when we start deceiving and these small sins eventually become offenses over a period of time. Deception eventually turns into offensive behavior. So he says, Narottam Das Thakur says, Dehena kariha asta. Do not trust your body and your mind, because you will be cheating out of habit. He says, do not trust your body and your mind, because you will be cheating out of habit. I mean, of course, we don't have to take it to a very big extreme. We can always take guidance, right? We can always take guidance. Prabhuji, from another senior devotee in whom we have trust. Prabhuji, is my mind cheating me, or is it that really I am I need to address this issue, or is it my body cheating me? मुझे बहुत थकान लग रहा है, but I mean बाकी कुछ चीज करने के लिए I have enthusiasm, but other things I am not having enthusiasm. Is it my body which is cheating me, or what? How do I understand? We can always take guidance from people. So Narottam Das says, do not trust your body and your mind because you will be cheating out of habit. So he says, when you project your bodily concept onto the spiritual realm, you will start committing offenses. Okay, Maharaj will explain this. If you project your bodily concept into the spiritual realm, then it will become offenses. If we have this tendency to deceive, we will end up deceiving not only ourselves, but we will deceive our spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, and in this way we will be committing offenses. So this is a problem. So how this deceiving tendency becomes leads to offenses? Because when we deceive ourselves, then slowly we will deceive other Vaishnavas, and we'll end up deceiving our spiritual master also. And when we end up deceiving our spiritual master, then it will become an offense. Of course, deceiving other Vaishnavas is also an offense. So that's what here he is indicating. So the 6th verse of Manasiksha is about how dangerous it is to commit offenses on the spiritual path. So these offenses burn us from within and deprive us of the opportunity to attain a true spiritual experience. So one thing we saw that as Raghunath Das Goswami is indicating here, the soul is addressing the mind. My dear mind, why do you fall trapped to this deception and pretense and hypocrisy? And in falling trapped to these things, you are burning yourself and you are burning me. So we saw various meanings of how does the mind gets burnt. The mind gets burnt because the mind always has to be in anxiety if you have committed a deceptive or a hypocritical activity. The mind always has to be anxious to protect that hypocritical act or deceptive act. So the mind is always under anxiety. So the mind gets burnt in this way. And how does the soul gets burnt? One thing is, unless this deception is given up, the soul cannot progress further on its path of devotional service. This is one way in which the soul gets burnt. The second way in which the soul gets burned is that this deceptive behavior gradually leads to offenses. And when it leads to offenses, then it further actually steals away valuable spiritual credits that we have gained by proper practice of devotional service. Okay. So, and the offenses also burn the soul by taking away his innate ability to serve Krishna. The desire to serve Krishna will be taken away when the deceptive nature transforms into offenses. So he says the word kapata that Raghunath Das Goswami uses here has numerous meanings. Kapata kutinati bharakara, he says, right? The words that define kapata include deception, cunning, hypocrisy, slice, fraud, trickery, evasion, self-justification, and eventually godlessness and sin. These are all the various shades of meanings of the word kapata. Srila Jiva Goswami gives a very important definition of deception on the spiritual path. So Srila Jiva Goswami defines what is deception on the spiritual path. He says, in his Bhakti Sandarbha, he explains that deception on the spiritual path is that outwardly we bow down before our Guru, the Sadhus, the Vaishnavas, and Sri Bhagavan, while internally we do not have faith in them. Like that. Yes, Radha Pramod Prabhu.
True, on the previous slide, I just had that. I want explanation for that.
Yeah. Go
Before
ahead,
this,
Before this.
I wanted explanation, like how we are imposing like this bodily concept into spiritual realm, projecting what that does mean.
Well, okay, there are multiple understanding of this. For example, in judging a perfected Vaishnava. So when we act in particular ways, like when we become angry, that anger is due to unfulfilled material desire or lust. So when a spiritually perfected soul, when he becomes angry, that anger is not due to frustrated lust. That anger is due to Krishna prema. It can be, like a sanchari bhava or something like that. So, so this is one understanding of projecting bodily concept onto the spiritual realm. There could be people, and one bodily concept. One here, what he is talking about is the tendency to deceive is on the bodily concept, right? And when that bodily concept is brought into the spiritual realm, like in the material world, we have to deceive others so that we are always seen as being very great. But when we project this material attitude of deceiving others into the spiritual realm, then we will end up deceiving the Vaishnavas, and we will end up deceiving the spiritual master. And this is actually, this will cause offenses. So, like, for example, I'll give my own example once. I mean, while I was in GEV, I used to take care of the flower garden. So, so of course, so Maharaj, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was taking a tour of various places, and we heard that he was coming to the flower garden. So we quickly collected a few fragrant and good looking flowers and we made a few bouquets. Not bouquet, but like a small, you can say like a bouquet type, small bouquet type, to give to Maharaj. So Maharaj came. So I gave it to Maharaj. Maharaj looked at it and he said, have you offered it to Krishna or have you offered it to Prabhupada? Which I did not, actually. So in the, but what would I say? I mean, it was a mixed feeling. First thing, I didn't want to disappoint Maharaj by saying no. And another thing, if I say no, what will Maharaj think about me as a devotee? That you're offering something to the spiritual master, which is not offered to Krishna. So, so definitely, that those feelings, that the lower tendencies took over. And I said, yes. I didn't complete the sentence because that would have been an overt lie. This was lying only, the spiritual master. But, you know, but I said yes. But it was such a embarrassing situation for me. But this is an offense, right? Because you have directly lied to the spiritual master. So, and where does it come from? It comes from the tendency to deceive. And the tendency to deceive is on the bodily concept only. And when we project this bodily concept onto the spiritual realm, which means the spiritual master, the Vaishnavas, they are all, in the spiritual realm. When we project it, then it naturally leads to offense. Is that relevant to Radha
Yes,
Pramod
bro.
Prabhu?
Yes, bro. So, like I have Dehatma Buddhi. So now I calculate things based on my Dehatma Buddhi.
Mhm.
Same thing, if I see my Guru or Vaishnavas doing, I also consider maybe because of they had some bodily demands or mental demands, he's also acting in the same way, like
Yeah,
a conditioned living entity.
yeah. That is also true. That's why there are multiple ways of looking at it. You know, what is this meaning of projecting our bodily concept of life into the spiritual realm? There are multiple ways of looking at it. One of the ways, one of the ways we saw, that deception leads to deceiving our spiritual superiors, which eventually leads to offenses. And another thing is, multiple ways. That's what. Or judging them in a way, as you mentioned, according to our material calculations, which is also an offense, like that. Okay, so let's continue. So he says, Raghunath Das Goswami says that kapata, the absence of faith in the Vaishnavas, in the sadhus, in the spiritual master, and ultimately in Krishna gives rise to kutinati. So, kapatata means, as Jiva Goswami defines here, kapatata is deception. Deception on the spiritual path means outwardly you may show respect, but inwardly we actually we do not have faith in them. But outwardly you may glorify just to get some, uh, just to not fall in their bad books, or so that, because if you outrightly show your lack of faith, then we may not get our facilities, or we may not, whatever it may be, all those things. For those purposes, we may not want to, um, externally show our disrespect or lack of faith, but internally we don't have faith, right? We don't have respect for that person. So then what does this kapatata or deception lead to? It says that it leads to kutinati. So kutinati means what? Maharaj says kutinati is hypocritical activities, that is absorption in extraneous matters, spiteful talk, cruelty, and ultimately violence. Okay. So hypocritical activities means absorption in extraneous matters. Why? Because we don't have faith in the spiritual personalities, their spiritual instructions. So it is not worth absorbing our mind. So if our mind has to be absorbed somewhere. So if it is not absorbing in the spiritual instructions, because we don't have faith in the spiritual mentor, a spiritual preceptor, then our mind, where will it get absorbed in? It will get absorbed in extraneous matters. And then, still worse, spiteful talk, which means talking ill about others. Still worse, cruelty. cruel thoughts, and eventually violence. So this is how it actually gets degraded. Hmm. So he says deception. Deception means lack of faith. So this naturally leads to um, absorption in extraneous matters. Then it naturally leads to spiteful talk. Okay. Then this naturally leads to cruelty, and this naturally leads to violence. Okay. So therefore, it all started with deception. So if deception is not nipped at the bud, if it is not addressed in the beginning only, then naturally it leads to absorption in extraneous matters, spiteful talk, cruelty, violence. So therefore, if we sense a lack of respect and faith in our spiritual preceptors, and in our guides and in the literature, then we will not absorb our mind and heart in their teachings. So even though, because we have externally accepted the path, we have externally accepted the dress, we have been chanting, so externally we will do everything right, but because that key aspect of respect is not there, what will happen internally? This will lead to um, lack of absorption in their in the real core aspects of their teachings, because we don't have respect in that person. So when we lose respect in their teachings, then what do we have to absorb our mind in? We will end up absorbing our mind in material subject matters. And material subject matters, when we absorb our mind in, it is asat sangha, and asat sangha will lead to um, you know um, spiteful talk, backbiting, and speaking ill about the devotees, and eventually this will lead to cruelty, and eventually it will further lead to actually violence. So that's what he says here. So this all starts. This all starts with the fact that inside I do not have complete sincerity or absolute unconditional faith, and I justify myself in every possible way. So this justifying tendency and this lack of faith, uh, leads to step degradation. That's what he says. He says such a mood manifests itself in the fact that I start focusing on something extraneous, such as watching TV or movies, and start thinking, I need this for my preaching so that I can preach in a more efficient way. I will tell them about this movie in the class. We may start thinking like this. So why do we do this? You know why do we do this? Because we have lost trust in the teachings of our spiritual preceptors. Even though externally we glorify them, externally we pay respects, externally we pay obeisances, but internally we have lost faith in their teachings. So when internally we are struggling with faith, then it leads to lack of absorption in their teachings. When we lose absorption in their teachings, then our mind has to be absorbed somewhere. It gets absorbed in matter. And when it gets absorbed in matter, you need a proper justification, right? We need, because a materialistic, a spiritual person, what business has he got in watching a movie, or or watching any material things? There is some justification needed. So that justification is, oh, I need it for preaching. I will share this in my class, like that. So then Maharaj says, then we engage in spiteful talk, and then into cruelty, and then ultimately into violence. Srila Prabhupada sometimes translates kutinati as spiteful talk. In fact, it is a very sad chain. So, so then what is the first sign of deception? So he says, the Acharyas explain that the first manifestation of deception is that our attitude towards a spiritual master becomes like the one we have towards common people. Okay. So we may start thinking, oh, even our spiritual master, like sometimes we see, we may think like, sometimes we have, oh, this is just a Western mentality. We start, dividing between, Western mentality and Vedic mentality. Then we look at our spiritual master, and we see that our spiritual master is eating a piece of pizza. Okay. And we will think, oh, this is Western. What to do? It's okay. He's anyway not brought up in the Vedic, culture, like that. So this may seem like very harmless, but actually, in one sense, we think that even our spiritual master is subject to the kind of conditionings. Just like it is natural for anyone to be conditioned, but if you think that your spiritual master is also a conditioned soul, then on what basis did we accept him as a spiritual master, right? So these are things which we have to be very careful. Okay, already I see 2 hands are up. Okay, one is okay, Radha Pramod.
Just wanted to check, when you are telling this is Western mentality or Indian mentality, like sometime we hear the different spiritual masters. Some are from India, some have been in India for a long time, and some are from the West. And when the same situation is explained to different spiritual masters, they give different solutions. So then they say, because this is Western mentality, that's why Maharaj does not know what is Indian situation. So he just allows everything. And some Maharajas, they are very strict regarding some things. They say, because he has been in India, so he knows what is Indian culture, so he allows. So
Okay.
is it like offensive, or what is this type of understanding people have about the spiritual masters?
Well, I would say, I don't want to pass judgment here, but yeah, but which means you don't, in one sense, we do not have an absolute faith in the words of the spiritual master. Yeah, it sounds little offensive to me. I don't know. Because That's what, right? Yes. Gurushu Naramati Vaishnave Jabuddhi. Arche Vishnum Shiladihi Gurushu Naramati Vaishnave Jati Buddhi. So if you think, this kind of a mentality is in one sense like Gurushu Naramati, that the spiritual master is also subject to the same kind of conditioned things. But of course, we are talking about bona fide spiritual masters. But if if someone is not on that level, then it is quite possible. But if yeah, it sounds little. It may not be spoken in a offensive way, but it can be little offensive also, I feel.
Yes, bro. I also felt offensive, so I thought I'll clarify. Yes, thank you.
Hmm. Krishna Rupa Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam.
Dandavat.
Prabhuji, I just want to, understand one thing. Say like, once His Holiness Chandra Mauli Swami Maharaj, he had come at a place. So before coming, we asked him, Maharaj, what would you like to have and all like. So he asked me, do you know how to prepare pasta? So I said, no, I don't know how to prepare pasta, Maharaj. So he gave me the recipe he made. So while I was making that pasta, I was thinking, oh, he's from Italy, that's why he likes pizza and pastas. Like this was way back in 2001, Prabhuji. And then while I was making, I was thinking, okay, he likes pasta because he's from Italy.
He's not from Italy, he's from United States.
I assume that time, that later on I came to know that he is from United States actually. So I was thinking, oh, maybe he's from Italy, that's why he likes pasta. Like. And 10 years later, I had heard in one lecture that pizza and pasta, narka rasta, like in that way. So because I have never eaten pasta before he told me the recipe. I had not even eaten Maggie as such, because my mother used to never feed us all these things. So is it that while making that pasta, I was making some offense, relating him with a particular country or with a particular, this, that, okay, he's from Italy maybe, and that's why he likes pasta or something like that.
No, I mean, that is in one sense okay. That thought can be from with a offensive mentality, and it need not be an offensive mentality also. But yeah, as long as the mood is to please him the best way that you can, then it's perfectly fine. You want to learn how exactly the Italians prepare their pasta or pizza, whatever, so that you can perfectly please that spiritual master, then it is perfectly fine. Otherwise, if you think, oh, he must also be similarly conditioned, just like me, if you think like that, then that is no offensive.
And secondly, I wanted to ask you that when I was in Delhi, Prabhuji, so one of my prime services was serving the sannyasis, means cooking for the sannyasis. So once upon a time, His Holiness Bhakti Vasudev Swami Maharaj, the doctor had given him a diet that he should eat only multigrain roti and lauki, boiled lauki, no namak, no haldi, nothing, only blad lauki and chana, chana dal boiled, that much. So for 6 months, I served him every day morning the same thing. I got bored cooking for him, and means it to such an extent I got bored cooking for him. But it was sadhu seva. All the time I kept on telling my mind that yes, this is sadhu seva. But I was wondering, I can't eat this daily. How is Maharaj eating this? And why is he torturing himself so much? Because just because the Ayurvedic doctor has told him. So once upon a time I prepared that prasadam with not that, great mood. So then is
Mhm.
it again I've made an offense? Because over here when you're saying that what's so special about the guru, or so I am just thinking that have I made any offense towards these sannyasis whom I had cooked? Because like His Holiness Keshav Bharati Swami Maharaj also used to not eat roti. He used to eat only rava dosa, and rava dosa he used to eat in sabji. So every time I used to think, I don't know why, means now after seeing this, I'm thinking that have I made any offense towards these sannyasis? It's just a little sign of this for me actually. That
Well, I mean, we have discussed the principle, Mataji. So now it's up to each individual to introspect and see what my exact thought was, what my mood was to actually identify whether it was offensive or not. So the principle we have described. So what you are thinking, what exactly were your thoughts, and how whether those thoughts were offensive or not, I think it's up to the individual to introspect and come to a conclusion. So, but the essential principles we have discussed here in this commentary. So the individuals have to think, because you can tell what you thought, but whether it was taught in an offensive way or not, you only know. I don't know actually.
and now it's
So
already so many past, it is such a past thing that that time what was that thought, maybe it's like difficult to even recollect that what was my mood at that point of time, maybe like.
yeah, it's probably, then you can assume that it was probably a little offensive, and then you can mentally offer a prayer.
Prayer,
Mm,
yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Krishna, bro.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I have two questions.
Yes, bro.
Earlier in one of the slides you showed, you
Mhm.
mentioned that the demigods,
Mhm.
they send distractions. It is not clear. Can you please explain that? Why should demigods send distractions?
Demigods can send distractions to devotees on behalf of Krishna. So, because or some of the demigods, they themselves may be dealing with some envy towards someone who is practicing a lot of austerities, like Indra we see many times. But and when they give, they may put some obstacles on the path of devotees, but Krishna will just use those demigods uh, to give suitable test to the devotees, so that the devotees can pass that test and progress forward further. So the demigods cannot do anything for independent of Krishna's desire when it comes to dealing with devotees. So demigods, so one should not think that uh, while Krishna wants to help me, but the demigods want me to fail. So okay, even the demigod, if the demigods may want us to fail, do they have? Can they do it against the wish of Krishna? It is impossible. So, yeah, sometimes it may happen that because demigods are also individuals, and they are many times not pure devotees. When pure devotees themselves have to sometimes deal with envy, uh, it is quite possible that mixed devotees may also deal with envy and put some obstacles. But those obstacles will not come to a devotee without the sanction of Krishna. So Krishna would have sanctioned it for the benefit of the devotee. Otherwise, independent of Krishna's sanction, no demigod can put any obstacle on the path of a devotee's spiritual life.
Okay. Then another question, Prabhu. You said that when we start deceiving, we
Mhm.
lose our ability for self-introspection.
Mhm.
It's not clear how it deprives one of his ability for self-introspection.
Because our mind will get absorbed in protecting what we have deceived the public from, because we don't want them to know. So this is a vicious cycle. You are trying to deceive people, and you have to maintain it. So to maintain what one lie or something that we have a deceptive thing, it takes lot of mental space. So we get so absorbed in protecting the lie that we have spoken, or the kind of deception that we have posed on others, that rather than fixing the problem and the anartha, all our mental space goes in hiding from others and continuously. So that way our endeavor to self introspect and rectify that mistake, all that mental space has been taken up by in protecting that deception. So in that sense, our ability to
The
introspect is
very fact that the self-introspection itself is only to rectify the weakness of the devotee. So when some devotee is deceiving and he internally feels that I should find out why this is happening, then he voluntarily takes up self-introspection to correct himself. So why should his ability for self-introspection be deprived by the deception what he has already practiced?
Because the very fact that he wants to deceive is that he has these weaknesses, and at the same time wanting to be seen as a very important advanced person in the eyes of others. That desire is there. So when these two come together, then the mind will constantly keep scheming to say that how I can act in such a way. Okay, this weakness is there, how I should at least in front of others I should not show it up, and things like that. That way the mind becomes constantly engaged in that thought process. So where will the mind space, there will not be sufficient mind space left to actually sit and introspect how I can actually overcome this. How I can actually offer prayers to Krishna and Radharani to overcome this situation. So rather than the mind engaging in these kind of activities, the mind engages in deception. And when it engages in deception, the ability to introspect, offer prayers, and seek benedictions from the Supreme Lord, that is gone. That's how Maharaj is explaining here.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare. Okay, there is some question in the chat box. Prabhupada was Indian, but Western disciples took it in a right way. Even many foreign gurus are not Vedic followers, but have accepted his mood. So when a disciple understands his guru's mood, and as far as principles are not compromised, both gurus are right. Yeah, correct. Yeah, I understand. I agree. Yes, Srinivas Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Probably the question which I think Krishna Prabhu was just discussing about, that why demigods, like, so the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Devi Ishi Gunamayi Mam Maya Duratte, where the Krishna says that it is my energy, and then he says that in that the divine energy of mind, consisting of three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond. So when a devotee takes the shelter of Lord Krishna, despite that he guides the demigods to disturb the devotee.
Well, disturb the devotee means when someone goes to a gym and wants to build muscles, if the gym instructor keeps adding more and more weight, is he trying to disturb the visitor?
Correct.
Yeah, no, it's just to Yeah.
help.
So when we are trying to, when a devotee has decided to surrender, then gradually the one has to his level of surrender should increase, and Krishna may sometimes use the agency of Maya to to test that level of surrender and to help that devotee increase his level of surrender.
Correct. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so let's continue now. So deception starts saying, what is so special about the Guru? Satswarup Maharaj tells an amazing story. In the beginning, when Srila Prabhupada had just started spreading Krishna consciousness in New York and his first disciples joined him, they arranged a public program for Srila Prabhupada. Among them was Rai Ram Prabhu, one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Rai Ram printed posters which he struck all over the east side in Manhattan, where they had their preaching activities. So he had a public program, and Rai Ram Prabhu had prepared the posters for that public program. The poster read, "This man has changed the consciousness of the world." Right? So this sounds quite all right, right? This man has changed the consciousness of the world. So it seems like a glorification of Prabhupada, even though Prabhupada had actually, in one sense, been in the vicinity of New York, the east side of New York only. And even there, very few people knew Srila Prabhupada. And he has mentioned that this man has changed the consciousness of the whole world. So definitely it seems like a glorification. But then what happened? At that time, Srila Prabhupada was away. So when he came back to New York after some time, Rai Ram proudly showed him the poster. Srila Prabhupada made a grimace and said, "It is a very poor poster." At first, Satswarup Maharaj did not understand why Srila Prabhupada did not like it. Then Prabhupada said, "Guru cannot be called a man. Gurushu Naramati." Right? At least he could have told this personality. Right? This man is a very, you can say, like a disrespectful way of addressing a spiritual master. Right? So he said, Prabhupada said, the spiritual master cannot be called as man. So he says, first, we pull down the Guru to a level closer to our own. This is what hypocrisy or deception is about. Then we give our mind the opportunity or license to focus on extraneous things. As a result of this, people start to speak ill of each other. Okay. So first, we pull the Guru to a level closer to our own, and then we give our mind the opportunity or the license to focus on the extraneous things. Then we start speaking ill of each other. He says, sometimes people tell me that when they belong to other societies, people did not talk so badly about each other. But here, devotees are always backbiting. This terrible behavior leads to the beginning of cunning in our life and deception. So he says that sometimes, I mean, this is true in one sense. Sometimes the kind of backbiting that we may see in our society, where actually Vaishnava Aparadh is said to be mad elephant offense. Sometimes we may catch ourselves engaging in it more than even outside society. Right? He says this is a sad situation because sometimes when we are careless in our spiritual practice, instead of purifying our heart, the spiritual practice starts reinforcing the problems found there. So this is a very important point. So this is the result of careless execution of devotional service, is that weeds get reinforced more strongly, right, than even in the outside world. Sometimes we may see devotees, or we may find ourselves sometimes that we are dealing with anarthas which are more deeper after coming to Krishna consciousness than even when we were before Krishna consciousness. Sometimes it happens, right? We see that we have a deeper, more deep-rooted lust, or more deep-rooted anger, irritability. So we may think, I was not so degraded even before coming to Krishna consciousness. But after coming to Krishna consciousness, these problems have become more deep-rooted. So here Maharaj says that this is the result of careless execution of devotional service. Because devotional service is so powerful that when we carelessly execute it, the weeds can grow very, very strongly, and sometimes much more stronger than even what is seen in the outside world, actually. So, in the world history, Maharaj says, in the world history, religious people committed so much evil and cruelty for the same reason, because they were not attentive to themselves and did not catch themselves cheating in time. So Maharaj says this is the cause of greatest evil, because big people in the religious history were not attentive to themselves and did not catch themselves cheating in time. So he says the sequence of events is very important. We have a slight tendency to deception. It gradually starts growing until it finally turns into a demon. This demon can completely devour us. Therefore, the main quality of a devotee is frankness, simplicity, and absence of hypocrisy. Frankness, simplicity, and absence of someone says that you can go to a hospital with a minor disease and come out with a dangerous disease, right? Yeah, that's quite possible. So this is this is not, Maharaj is not writing this to scare us, but the point is he is indicating that attentiveness, how important it is while executing devotional service. The attention to details and attention to our motives also while practicing devotional service. If you are not constantly introspecting and addressing these things, then it can lead to issues. That's what Maharaj says. Yes, Radha Pramod.
Bro, it is not scary, but we become hopeless. It's it's too much is there, and very far from what we are now, especially myself. So it is not, but the standards which they're more deeper and deeper. and the level I'm practicing, it's so much superficial, and I feel so much is there to work hard, and sometimes hopeless only.
That is why Raj is discussing one aspect of it, but the other aspect we can take shelter of that. Sadanatvam Gandharva Giridhara Pada Prema Vilasat Sudambodau Snatva. So that is there. There is a way of addressing this issue. I mean, we all are stuck up to a slight or a greater level in this quicksand, but there is a solution. That is why in the stuff he talks about the problem of deception, and in the second half he is talking about the solution for this. Otherwise, if we hear only one half of it, it's a very hopeless story, and it's very difficult actually. But but there is a solution for this. Maharaj talks about, Raghunath Das Goswami mentions that there is a solution, and if we somehow can train our mind to accept this solution, then it's good for the mind, and it's good for the soul actually. Is that okay, bro?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So therefore when we have a slight tendency to deception, and it gradually starts growing until it finally turns into a demon, and this demon can completely devour us. Therefore, the main quality of a devotee is frankness, simplicity, and absence of hypocrisy. Okay. So Maharaj then discusses about simplicity and determination. So what is this simplicity and how it leads to, and what is determination, we will discuss. Okay, let's start and see how far we can get. So we are going to discuss about simplicity and determination. So he says in the Hitopadesh, there is a very interesting verse. Manasyekam vachasyekam karmanyekam mahatmanam Manasanyat vachasanyat karmanyanyat duratmana. Very simple verse. Manasi ekam vachasi ekam karmani ekam. One who thinks, speaks, and does the same thing is called a Mahatma. Manasanyat vachasanyat karmani anyat. One who thinks one thing, says another, and does a third thing is called a duratmana, a fool. Or in Russian, it is called as durak. It sounds very much like duratmana. That is why it is so important, and the acharyas emphasize this point, that the main quality of a devotee is simplicity. What he says is what he does, is what he thinks. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that there are 4 essential qualities of a pure devotee. These are simplicity and frankness. So 4 essential qualities of a pure devotee. Okay. So first is simplicity or frankness. Second is being focused on the purpose. Okay. So what is my purpose? And being completely focused on the purpose. Third is determination. Or having one goal. Okay. And the fourth thing is not dependent on the opinion of others. So these are the 4 essential qualities of a pure devotee. Of course, we will see what this means. One is simplicity or frankness. Second is being focused on the purpose. What is the purpose of my life? Being focused on that and determined to get there. Relentless. And the fourth is not dependent on the opinion of others, which means not that he is very self-opinionated, that he does not take the opinion of others. It's not in that sense, but just that he does not allowed himself to be swayed by opinions of others. When he gets proper guidance from a senior devotee, then he does not allow himself to be swayed by the opinion of others. That's what it means. Anyway, we will see what he says. He says, that is why it is so important, and the Acharyas emphasize this point, that the main quality of devotee is simplicity. So this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur also says. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that there are, of course, we have seen this. Okay. So this last quality is very important, because we will be able to preserve all these qualities, especially simplicity, if we do not depend on the opinion of others. When we become too much swayed by the opinion of others, then we will lose simplicity, because in order to please others, we will in order to act according to the opinion of others, we will lose our simplicity. We cheat because we always want to appear different from what we really are to impress others. If we are too much dependent on the opinion of others, then it naturally leads to our losing our simplicity and our becoming deceptive, because we want to be seen very very nice in the vision of others, right? So he says in another article in Sajjana Toshani, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that for the dull people of Kali Yuga who find it difficult to remember 4 things, it is enough to remember just 2 things: simplicity and determination. So he says, if it is difficult to remember 4 things, then he says at least remember 2 things: simplicity and determination. To do bhajan and to worship Krishna, we need these 2 things: simplicity and determination. However, if we lack even one of them, it will be very difficult for us. If forget about 4 things, he says, remember 2 things: simplicity and determination. So we have to be simple, non-duplicitous, and we have to be determined. So if these 2, even if one of them is missing, then it is very difficult. So if there is no basic simplicity of heart and no determination, we naturally won't be able to do to make advancement. A dependence on other people's opinion creates a situation where we are inconsistent, right? So if someone says that if someone appreciates strong behavior or a strong opinion, then we will project as if we are very strongly opinionated. Whereas someone else appreciates flexibility of opinions, then we will project to themselves we'll project to them that we are very flexible in changing our opinions. Which means this is deception, because we lose our simplicity because we are too much dependent on the opinion of others. Okay, so when alone we are one kind of a person, but in society we are different. right? This is again. In some homes, in the hallway, there is a mirror because before going out, we ask, how do I look? How will people regard me? So he says in some homes, in the hall, we have a mirror because just before stepping out of the house, we can see ourselves in the mirror and, how do I look? How will people regard me? Like that. Sometimes, even in the homes of devotees, in the living room, everything is nice and clean. But in the bedroom, there is a bed that has not been cleaned for 2 weeks. Because, yeah, like that, Sometimes our mind resembles a 2-bedroom apartment consisting of a bedroom where our filthy nest is and a living room where everything is in order, neat and tidy to impress others. Right? Sometimes our mind is like that. Our honesty is desiring to attain Krishna also becomes manifest in our respect towards everything that is somehow or other connected with Krishna. If we want to achieve success on this path, this respect is a very important point. Right? So that's what he says. This respect is a very important quality if we want to achieve success on this path. Our honesty in desiring to attain Krishna also become manifest in our respect towards everything that is somehow or other connected with Krishna. So this is a very important point. Okay. So what is the barometer or litmus test for gauging our sincerity to attain Krishna? It is respect towards Krishna's tadiya. Things, people, objects, places connected to Krishna, how much respect we have towards Krishna's tadiya. That is a litmus test for gauging our sincerity to attain Krishna. So if we want to achieve success on this path, this respect is a very important quality. Above all, we must feel respect for the devotees. In no case should we offend them or talk ill of them. Hypocrisy is there within our hearts. If we bring this hypocrisy into our society, it turns into an offense and becomes even stronger. So he says, Srila Jiva Goswami illustrates this problem by an example from Mahabharata. So he gives this example. When Krishna came to Hastinapur, Duryodhana wanted to serve him. Okay. Just hold on. Okay. I think you can hear me. Can you just type on the chat box if you can hear me?
No, bro, it is not clear.
Oh, it's not clear. Okay,
now it is.
Now it's better.
Clear. Yes.
Now it's better. Okay. Yeah. So Duryodhana had organized a sumptuous reception for Krishna. So all along the roadside, he built banana arches and had women showering Krishna with flower petals as he went by. So dancers were performing to beautiful music and a sumptuous reception was arranged with all the best food prepared by top chefs from all over the kingdom. Right? Duryodhana said to Krishna, "O Janardhan, O Keshava, you are our dear guest, our relative.
you are our good friend, please eat. But Krishna refused. Duryodhana complained how unfair it was that Krishna was more favorably disposed to the Pandavas than to them. So he says, I have prepared this prasadam for you with love. You must accept it. Krishna replied, I am not obliged to accept anything. Duryodhana said, but aren't you our relatives? Aren't we your relatives? But Krishna's heart did not budge. He said, you have been hating the Pandavas since your childhood, offending them without any reason and trying to harm them. The Pandavas are non-different from me. You don't love them, which means that you hate me. One can eat only when the food is offered with love, or if one has nothing to eat. I have enough to eat and I don't feel any love. So why Krishna did not feel any love? Not because Duryodhana directly hated Krishna, but he hated someone whom Krishna loved very much. So if you are hating someone whom Krishna loves very much, then which means you don't value Krishna's opinions and his choices, which means we don't have respect for Krishna. So he says, so please do not feed me. I will go to Vidura. I do not want to get contaminated by your nasty food because there is no love in it. There is only cheating. Okay. So he says, so Srila Jiva Goswami says that sometimes people appear to be serving Krishna, but if while doing so they do not respect the Vaishnavas, then they are committing an offense and Krishna will not accept their so-called service. In the end, the heart may only get further from Krishna than it should have been. So this is very important point that he is talking about, this respect. So if we cannot respect the Tadiya of Krishna, then it shows that we are not sincere enough to please Krishna. So the litmus test for our sincerity to please Krishna is how much we respect things, people and places connected to Krishna. Okay, so I know I rushed this last part because I somehow felt that, okay, at least let me complete this one section properly. But I know there might be some discussion points, questions. I request devotees to note it down because it's already 9. So you can please note it down, and next Tuesday when we come, we can discuss it further. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. So hoping to have your association next Tuesday also. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Srila Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Shri Mana Siksha ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.